My name is Matthew Richardson and I'm Curator of Art and Social History at Manx National Heritage, and I'm here today to talk about one of our most important recent acquisitions which we were able to acquire and conserve with a very generous grant from the Manx Lottery Trust. The picture that we have here shows a young man named Paul Crebbin who came from Santon. It was painted in about 1780 by a very famous artist, a man named Arthur William Devis. Devis is particularly famous for a painting that he executed of the death of Lord Nelson. This painting that we have here has a very strong provenance because it's been in the hands of the same family for about 250 years. And we think that the picture was painted to mark the beginning of Crebbin's career with the Marines. Now, at this time, they did not yet have the title Royal, they were just the Corps of Marines. This was during the American War of Independence, and at this time, the Corps of Marines was expanding rapidly. This was because of the nature of that war. Sea battles in those days were fought at very close quarters, and the objective was not to sink the enemy ship, but to try to get in close as you can, get soldiers on board and capture the enemy ship as a prize of war. So this great expansion of the Royal Navy came at a time when many young men of the Isle of Man were seeking to find a way to make their fortune. And whilst in the past they'd often been taken by press gangs against their will into the Navy, they now began to see this as a possible career path. And in terms of this, I'm thinking about men such as John Quilliam, who around the same time volunteered for the Navy and who through his hard work would rise to the rank of captain. Now there's a very interesting quote from the Manx Mercury in 1793, and it carried a report about Crebbin, and it stated at the end, "This island furnishes His Majesty with as many brave fellows as any other place its size in the British Empire. Scarce a vessel in the Navy but what has some of its adventurous sons on board, and fierce they are on board till their merit meets preferment." Crebbin, just like Quilliam, would rise through the ranks of the Navy, in his case to the rank of Major, and we find reports of him in action against the French during the Napoleonic Wars. Just like Quilliam, he would have received handsome prize money for the ships that he helped capture. But examining the picture in detail, we can see what a phenomenal piece of work it is. It's not one of those portraits where the artist has simply hinted at the uniform with a wash of red. Here we can see every last detail of the Marine officer's uniform as it was at this time. We see the red, gaudy red of the tunic there. Red, of course, bright colours were essential in this period of warfare because as soon as a battle started, as soon as each side started firing at the other, everything was totally obscured in a haze of smoke. So bright colours were essential for one side to be able to see the other, or even for one side to be able to see its own men. And red was the traditional colour of the British Army and has been up to the present day. We have the little gorget around his neck, which is the last vestige of the old breastplate that would have been worn in the era of the English Civil War. Of course, with the greater firepower of muskets, that breastplate became irrelevant and gradually reduced until it just became simply an officer's badge of rank. We have his sword belt running across his chest. We see the sword belt plate with the crown with a lion above it. We see his buttons, which appear to be grouped in pairs, which may indicate that he was from the 2nd Division of the Marines. We see a sash around his waist, again another indication of rank that he was an officer. And we see what might possibly be a watch chain hanging from perhaps a fob watch that he has in his pocket. Because there are many details in an officer's uniform which are unique to that particular person. Unlike soldiers in the ranks, officers would go to their tailor to have their uniform made for them. So there was considerable allowance made in officers' uniforms for personal details of taste, and the officer would ask his tailor to make up certain items in certain ways. So this is a very unique uniform particular to this individual. In the background, the artist has depicted a military camp with the pre-1801 Union flag showing. In fact, these two flags are the King's colour and the regimental colour of the Corps of Marines. There's also a woman selling bread or pastries to a group of officers. And lastly, there's a large hill or outcrop in the background. And this might just be a reference to the Rock of Gibraltar. This is the Royal Marines' earliest battle honour, dating from 1704, when they captured the rock from Spain. The picture will shortly be going on display in the Man at War Gallery at the Manx Museum, which looks at the people of the Isle of Man in conflict from the 1700s to the present day.